Board 11. Thank you, Angel. Welcome everyone to Community Board. Please mute yourself unless you've been recognized to speak. Welcome to April 20th, Community Board 11 Executive Committee meeting. My name is Xavier Santiago. I'm the chair of Community Board 11. This meeting is officially called to order at 6:34 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by our district manager, Angel Mescane. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. 1, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, CB11 members, if you have questions about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. 3, the chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. 4, when a member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you may speak. 5, please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. A quick reminder for those members who are presenting, any questions and that may be raised during the presentations should be directed to the chair. Thank you very much. And now we will take attendance by roll call. Angel?
Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Jose Altamirano. Stephanie Arroyo.
Present.
Dan Brija. Jessica Elliott.
Present.
David Giordano.
Present.
John Green. Marissa Mack is excused. Nelson Arama.
Present.
Xavier Santiago.
Present.
Isaac Scott. Jason Villanueva.
Present.
Michelle Wilcher Clement.
Present.
You have quorum.
Thank you very much, Angel.
Sorry, I'm present. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you, Jose. Please notate it accordingly, Angel. Thank you. The agenda was distributed to the board members and posted on our website ahead of this meeting. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda for the meeting. For board members, if you wish to object, please raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no hands raised, the agenda is officially adopted. The minutes from the last full board meeting were distributed to the board members ahead of the time by the board office. If there are no objections, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Board members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from last full board meeting are officially adopted. They will soon be available on the CB11 website. Announcements. On March 27, 2023, the Department of City Planning certified land use applications C230286 PPM and C230285 PQM for the proposed 244 East 106th Street Sharon YC residential development project. The Community Board's 60-day review period began on April 5th, 2023 and must be completed by June 5th, 2023. A public hearing on these applications will be held during CB11 full board meeting on April 26, 2023. That is next Wednesday, not Tuesday, so next Wednesday. Another announcement, I'm going to call out our quick Jessica Elliott, who is also not only our vice chair, but our environments, open space and parks, if she'd like to make a quick announcement for tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Yes, tomorrow, we're all excited. It's happening finally tomorrow on April 21st, beginning at 10 a.m. promptly. So doors are opening at 9:30. We are hosting the second annual Manhattan Community Board 11 East Harlem Earth Day Conference. So we have a incredible agenda for the conference. It's going to be a lot of city agencies, community partners, community-based organizations presenting on their work. And then we'll have interactive lunch on the terrace at the Museum of the City of New York, where we can collaborate together, learn more about each other. And then we will have a workshop from 1 to 2 p.m. And then we will wrap up the event at 2. So it will be tomorrow. Be there at 9:30, 9:45. We'll begin promptly at 10 at the Museum of the City of New York, East Harlem Earth Day Conference. Thanks.
Wonderful. Are there any other announcements from our board members?
Oh, sorry. Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
I just wanted to add that it is in partnership with the Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee and the Youth and Education Committee. So thank you to both committees for their incredible work moving this forward.
Absolutely. Thank you to both committees. Any other announcements from the members of from our board members? Seeing no hands raised. Next slide. Any informational updates? All right, seeing no hands raised, we'll move the agenda along. We have our discussions and presentations. We have an informational presentation regarding the upcoming community-wide mental health symposium, Hope in Harlem Conference, a celebration of community, mental health, and wellness. Amber Stacks, the program manager, Institute for Health Equity Research at Mount Sinai. Do we have Amber with us?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Hi, you have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month in May, Mount Sinai, in partnership with First Corinthians Baptist Church and the Hope Center, will be sponsoring a community-wide mental health symposium. Would it be possible to share my screen? Excuse me. Yes, thank you so much. So Hope in Harlem, we're having it on Saturday, May 13th. The conference will start at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're offering free CEUs for social workers, psychologists, and physicians. Following the conference, we'll have a street wellness fair that will be on 116th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue, and then wrap around in front of First Corinthians Baptist Church between 16th and 15th Street, 116th and 115th. Our keynote speaker is Trisha Hersey. She's the founder of the NAT Ministry, really going to rest is resilience and using that as a personal practice and also collaborative practice for care to kind of get out of the busiest mindset and really be intentional about work. And then also really prioritizing rest so that a person can really serve other people as well. In joining, we'll have Pastor Mike, which is the senior pastor at FCBC, the New York State Health Commissioner, Dr. Ann Sullivan, as well as Dr. Green, the executive director of the Hope Center, and Sydney Hankerson and Dr. Shilpa Turafik from Mount Sinai, as well as two others. During the conference, we will also be honoring Heroes of Hope. So we'll be looking to community boards, community members to nominate folks who have really stepped up during the pandemic and provided innovative practices for mental health service to the community, knowing that a lot of people who possess marginalized communities or marginalized identities have stigma or reluctant to go into certain health organizations and health institutions to seek resources. So we're using this as a place to bridge the gap between community organizations and health organizations to provide those resources. Go to our speakers. You can see here our agenda. Our first panel will be on faith and community health partnerships. Mount Sinai, the Hope Center, and FCBC have collaborated for a number of years to provide innovative services for the community, ranging from depression screenings, anxiety screenings, and then also providing free counseling to those who are seeking services. In addition, we will also have Council Member Gail Brewer in attendance, as well as Representative Richie Torres. And yes. So if you would like to nominate a Hero of Hope, you're able to just access our website, hopeinharlem.com, hopeinharlemconference.com, and fill out the form here. We'll be able to search through and then highlight those who have been submitted throughout the conference. Thank you for your time. And here to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Wonderful.
Or also feedback as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us, Amber. Really do appreciate it. Do any of our board members have any questions? I see Nilsa.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation tonight. I just have like really one quick question, and so pardon my ignorance. Have you been doing this event for many years? I think it sounded like you have. And how have you marketed to the East Harlem community other than today, right? Like that you're coming in front of us so that we have community that may like to attend? And is there thoughts of doing something on the east side of Harlem, um, whether in the, in the near future or next year or anything like that, for those that cannot get out there in the community? But I thank you again, Ms. Stacks, for presentation.
Thank you so much. This is actually our first time doing this. So this is our inaugural one. We have worked, the Hope Center has held street fairs for a number of years, but this is Mount Sinai's first one. And I appreciate that comment, definitely thinking about how we can be impactful and reach East Harlem with Mount Sinai being on the east side. One of the reasons why we did place it in the church was that it was a community space. So we were trying to be intentional to make sure that it was not in a more stuffy place and more in a place that people are familiar with and comfortable with and can come as they are. So in the future, we will definitely be able to look into being able to expand our reach and be closer to those that we hope to serve. This one way that we have been meeting was through community boards. We are also handing out flyers, going into those kind of beauty shops, barbershops, other organizations that have people who can be reached in different ways outside of just technology and just attending other meetings.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stacks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from our board members? See that there are none. Thank you very much for being with us. I look forward to the event. Great. And moving us along, let's see right here. Next we have up is 2312 Drexel Corp doing business as Room 112 Bar and Lighthouse Fish Market. Renewal and alteration application for a full liquor license number 1325459 for a restaurant located at 508-510 East 117th Street, New York, New York 10029 at Pleasant Avenue. You've been able to look at the documents. This got pushed to executive as was explained in our email communication. They did present to licenses and permits. I believe Adem is here, a bit under the weather, but he is present with us. We had additional information brought to bear regarding the presentation and that they had claimed to have adjusted their operating hours. We did review some videos at the insistence of requests for privacy. We'll not be playing them live tonight. However, did most of our board members have the opportunity to review them? Okay. So again, this was tabled at licenses and permits and sent to us. We do have the representative for the applicant, Adam Powell, who is here. Adam, I'll allow you a few moments to represent to the executive committee, if you would.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be back with Community Board 11. Many friends and friendly faces here. I represent 2312 Drexel Corporation, doing business as Lighthouse Fish Market. It is at 508 East 117th Street. For those of you familiar or not familiar, it's 117th Street, further east from Pleasant Avenue. It's literally right before the entrance. Is the last business before you walk into the Costco shopping mall. You will see it there on your right as you're walking into Costco. It's across the street, directly across from what used to be Applebee's. So this is a renewal application. They've been around a couple of years, and they just seek your stamp of approval to get renewed from the State Liquor Authority.
Okay, board members, Adem, please, hopefully filling up to it. I'll recognize you, please.
Well, I just want for some clarity, is it just a renewal or is it a renewal and an alteration?
Yes, he's also doing an alteration. It's kind of a misnomer because it's a mezzanine. Literally, it's like a few steps up. The that's always been there. For some reason, when they did the initial application a couple of years ago, they did not include the mezzanine. So mezzanine has always been there, been built, and now they seek to add it so it can be licensed, so also people can go there and have a cocktail.
You're muted at them if you were going to follow up.
No, I just wanted that to be stated so everybody was
Yes.
aware of the other part of the application.
Okay. Now, in the application, is it for just room 112?
It's both. This place has 2 licenses and 2 entrances. There's 2 DBAs, which is perfectly allowed by state liquor authority rules. Place can have 2 entrances and 2 different names. It's still the same corporation. 2312 Drexel Corp. It's still the same location because it meets in the back, so it's not, you know, you don't have to go out one to go into the other one on sidewalk. They all meet in the back, so it's still the same location. The first one is the Lighthouse Fish Market, and you walk another 5 steps, 15, 20 feet, and it's room 112 bar. So originally, when he opened, it was more of a lounge, club, whatever you call it. He has since rebranded his establishment about 6 months ago or so. It is now food oriented, not necessarily alcohol oriented. So he has curtailed his hours to 11 p.m. during the week and 1 a.m. during the weekends. If someone is there, obviously, you know, they can come out, they can finish their drink or food, whatever, and come out at 1:30, 1:45. But basically, they don't let anybody in after like midnight, 12:30.
Okay, Adam, I recognize you.
All right, so, I mean, I guess I'll ask them as questions, but if they come off a little as comments, it's kind of a combination. I'm just confused about a couple of things. You said there are 2 licenses. If I recall, this board has only approved 1 license for this applicant. That second license, as far as I know, never came before this board. Number 2, when this, whatever application, because I don't have them in front of me, whatever license this committee, this board approved was only for Lighthouse Fish Market. The room 112 on that initial approval was never presented, or as far as I know, was made clear to the board that that was what we were going to be voting on at that time. So I don't know if I know you weren't the representative at that time, but if you could give some clarity, because you mentioned that there are 2 licenses, which one are we renewing? And how is it now that we're renewing a license that is incorporating another DBA and another business that we weren't initially presented the first time we approved it?
Yes, I'll try to shed some light as much as I can, because again, I just came on board about 2 weeks ago. I wasn't there originally 2 years ago, but licenses are the 1325459, the main license, and the second one is 5460. So instead of 59, it ends with 60. Lighthouse, the place that you come in and you order, some of the food is already cooked and they just serve it, and some of it they cook. Good food, by the way. Their license is all the way in the back. There's a bar, and if you walk around to the left, you'll see the dining room area, and if you keep walking, you will come out the other side. And the other side, the bar is right at the entrance. So if you back on the street and you go in, instead of going into Lighthouse, you go into 112 bar. The bar is right there at the very entrance, huge flat screen TV and all the other amenities for a bar. So both of them are up for renewal. Both of them are renew at the same time, at the same date and time. I appreciate your comments. I just wasn't around a couple of years ago. I just came on board, but that's basically it. 2 licenses, and they both are being renewed as we speak. The reality is that, they could be renewed today for all I know, or tomorrow. The check was cashed, just to let you know, was cashed a few days ago, 4 or 5 days ago. It takes the liquor authority about 4 or 5 days after the checks are cashed to officially renew, so it could be any day.
Thank you, Jose.
No, I just wanted a clarification, Chair, that this, but I think I got my clarification. This was that restaurant that we approved as a restaurant, and then it kind of had the issue with nightclub, and there were some issues there. In public safety, I know the precinct spoke to us about it, that they were completely against it. And I thought recently they had tried to make it like a strip bar or something like that was presented before us. But I just wanted to make sure that it was that particular location we were talking about, because we had had a lot of reservations in regard to this location. I know the precinct had severe reservations against it. And I wasn't sure, but I think now that them and the gentleman Adam Powell, I believe this is the same place we're talking about.
Yeah, that was much of it was true about a year ago with the community board, with the precinct. But a lot has changed, as I mentioned, 6 months ago or so. They totally changed their method of operation. But I got to tell you, because I live in that Pleasant Avenue area, have lived there for 30 years, over 30 years. Honestly, I've never heard, it's not one of those problematic places with the community, that is. There are other places I won't speak of that are problematic, but that one I had never heard of, except in the community board meetings, because I know it was an issue with the community board, and rightly so, about a year ago, yeah.
Thank you, Jose. Do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Nilsa and then Michelle. Nilsa?
Hello, I just want to clarify. So Mr. Powell mentioned two applications, two renewals, but we're hearing one.
One,
Is-
it's really one application for renewal.
But you just mentioned
It's the
two
two
of them.
licenses included, 59 and 50, the last two digits, but it's one application, it's one license location, one company.
Okay, thank you. And also, just to clarify, we don't only hear about this business at the community board meetings. We actually hear about this business in other meetings. And so while I appreciate that you haven't heard any complaints, I will tell you that we have heard complaints even within this 6-month time span. So if it is so that they've changed their method of operation, then we are hopeful, and I am hopeful, as the former chair of CB11 for 4 years, that we will not hear any more issues about this. You know, we have looked at different things, so I know I've seen video and things like that. And so it's refreshing that you've come in front of us to represent your client. But I will tell you that that for myself, I'm not thinking about what they did a year ago. I'm thinking about what they've done as recently as 2 months ago, which will then factor in my decision. But thank you so much.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate it. And again, it's you know, it's you know, growing pains, so to speak. You know, it's a change in progress. But I'm constantly speaking with the owner to make sure that, you know, he abides by community rules of good neighbor.
Okay, thank you, Nilsa. Thank you, Adam. Jose, Nilsa, if you could just lower your hands, please. Michelle.
Hi, I wanted to echo a lot of what Nilsa said so that I will not repeat that. However, walking to the back of the room, I understand that it was said that it was just a few steps to enter into room 112 or 111. However, it is not just 3 or 4, it is a whole story of steps. So therefore, it is another establishment. So, 2 separate liquor licenses that one. It seems to technically be 2 different spaces.
Michelle, you're breaking up a little bit.
That's different. Oh, hold
Yeah,
on a second. Let me turn this thing off. Can you hear it better now?
Slightly.
yes.
Go on.
Okay. I don't know what you heard or what you didn't hear, so I'm just going to repeat very quickly. I echo what Nilsa said earlier.
I think we've lost you again, Michelle.
I did hear much of what she said. And I believe she was referring to the place having two separate entrances, completely separate outside. That is true. But if you're on the sidewalk, it is literally no more than, I don't know, if it's not 20 feet, it's 25 or 28 feet. There's a set of steps, the entrance to a tenement building in the middle, in between the two entrances. And that's basically it. But it's one place, again, it's one place. Everything in the back is together. It has two entrances, but it's one place and one corporate tenant.
Jose, do you have a follow-up question?
No, that was just a lazy hand that stayed up.
That's fine. So I think looking at this, I think there are a couple of concerns that we raised, and Adem and I did with the 2.5. Hold on a second. Michelle, go ahead. If you're in a stable internet connection, go ahead.
I am in a stable one. I did hear the response, and I did want to follow up saying, because I have been there, and it is more than just a few steps. It is, to my understanding, a whole separate space. If you have to walk up that many stairs, it's not just 1, 2, or 3 or 4. It's a good amount of stairs to walk up. It's a different space. So wouldn't it need technically 2 separate licenses?
No, because they meet in the back. It's all together in the back. It's one space that has 2 entrances. So it's like a horseshoe, if you will. A horseshoe, the 2 entrances are the end of the horseshoe, and the round semicircle part of the horseshoe is in the back. It's all in the back all together. So it's one tenant, one lease.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Nilsa and then Adem.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Powell. Then if it's all one business,
Mhm.
under one corporate entity, can you explain to me why they have 2 licenses?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, in the general scheme of things, some restaurants that are big or have several floors have 2 and sometimes even 3 bars. So that's not completely uncommon, although most of them have only 1 bar. But I say, not scientifically, but maybe 1 out of 10% have 2 bars or more in general. This place has 2 bars. One is more of a loungy area, and the other one is more of the food-oriented, grab your food or sit down and we'll come and bring your food and the bar at the end. But yeah, it's not uncommon for a place to have 2 bars.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
You got it.
Okay, thank you, Adem.
Adam, is the owner on tonight?
No, unfortunately, he's actually cooking in the kitchen, the grill, because it's the end of Ramadan, and a couple of his employees weren't able to make it, so he's desperate over there trying to fill in for the cooks.
Well, then my next
Told me
question
to
is,
text him. He told me to text him when we were on. I honestly haven't. I did text him that the meeting had started, but anyway.
well, I only ask because at our license and permits meeting, I know we had asked about him willing to accommodate certain
Yes.
hours, stuff like that. So my
Yes,
question is,
we are.
well, no, but let me go one step further than
sure.
that. I don't know what the committee will do tonight, but if
Mhm.
they're gonna ask for maybe certain asks or gives from him in order to maybe find some kind of conditional motion, are you able to answer those things in his place?
Yes, to some extent. I mean, I don't have leeway and would never presume to, negotiate everything and anything, but yes, some things he and I have talked about, sure.
Or I mean, if possible, I'd suggest
Yeah, I
to
would.
see if we could
Yeah.
get on this meeting, because I don't know which way this will go, but it might be
Yeah, I just
helpful to have
texted
him on.
him, but again, he's overwhelmed over there. At the end of Ramadan, a couple of his employees just are not
I
there.
understand, I'm
But
Muslim,
I'm
so I
I'm
understand.
aware, and I'm also again at liberty to, do some negotiation, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, on his behalf.
Okay,
All right, thank you. One of the things, and Adem and I did over a year ago, take a walk through with the 2.5. When they presented it originally for this, it was our understanding that the entire space would be like what Lighthouse Fish Market is set up for operation. And that entire, and again, this is something that we looking at in retrospect should have gone through a walkthrough, and now we are being more direct with this approach. However, in many ways, there was not a forthcoming representation. It was a representation of that it was going to be just a fish market, a fried fish food. The ad bar was done during the pandemic, and they did not present to this community board. They just added it without following forth with the 30-day notice. So that's something that they should have done. And most establishments in this community do show up when they have an ad bar or an additional license like what's been presented. So I think that is part of the concern there as well. So I think
Well, but as you know, Mr. Chairman, the State Liquor Authority will not approve of anything unless they see the 30-day notice with the certified mail proof of notice.
after speaking with
Yeah.
Michael Smith, he says this slipped under their radar before he got assigned to us. Okay, so this is something that typically should not have happened. So just to kind of clear the air there. And again, if we had been in 2019 presented that, yes, we want to do this type of business and we're going to expand and maybe do a different style, we would have had a more robust conversation.
2021, I believe, is when they opened. So 2020, 2021.
Angel, would you be able to double check this first?
Yes.
459, that was 2019, correct?
Give me a second to look it up.
Yep, sure.
SLA has the effective date for the lighthouse part as April 28th, 2021.
Correct.
And the
Okay.
effective date for the room 112 part as May 3rd, 2022.
Okay, thank you for clarifying on that. I appreciate it. My correction. I appreciate that. So we have a hand in the attendees just to get some clarity here. And I'm going to limit this.
And
But
again,
there's a Michael.
it goes without saying that every 2 years they got to come up for renewal. So you guys, we'll talk to them every 2 years. And if anything, God forbid, out of the ordinary happens, you guys can call us in anytime.
Thank you. I'm going to take a few comments from members of the public, and then just to kind of button this up and bring it back to the committee while we hopefully have the proprietor be able to show up. Okay, Michael Palmetto.
He's not available, but I'm here on his behalf.
Okay, and what is your name for the records for the meeting minutes?
Kate?
Kate Palmetto?
No, last name is Soul.
Sol? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Your comment and or question?
I'd like to know what's being done between the agencies of New York City's Police Department, the New York City Department of Buildings, and New York State to keep this establishment from being the disaster that it has been for the last 2 years. There are 5 buildings on 2 lots that have been combined. There are stop work orders, revoked permits, and a vacate order. And yet we're listening now about executing a license for a liquor. And there's no right at the moment for the business to exist in the buildings as they are. The means of egress is insufficient. There are multiple levels, all done with permits, self-certified by an architect who did not draw what exists. I'd like to know when the building is going to be brought to code so that our community board can be comfortable with an adult establishment on a residential block within the distance of a high school and grade schools.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll allow both Adam and then Angel, if you could clarify in our research on the building block and lots.
Yeah, honestly, as far as code violations or New York City Department of Buildings, any of that, I'm not aware of any of that. Suffice to say, for the application process, you only need to show a certificate of occupancy for the location. And if there is none, then you need to get what is called an LNO, letter of no objection, If you do try to get an LNO, letter of no objection from the Department of Buildings, at that point, the violations come into play. They will not issue an LNO unless the violations are clear. I didn't do this 2 years ago, so I don't know if they had a certificate of occupancy or if they receive a letter of no objection from the Department of Buildings.
A letter of no objection was issued by the Department of Buildings.
Ma'am, I'm recognizing people. I'm going to ask
If I may finish, then that's more to the point that apparently at least 2 years ago, when they applied and received their liquor license, there were no outstanding violations because they would not receive a letter of no objection from the Department of Buildings if there are some violations.
Yes, they would.
Okay, so thank you.
I do that myself, and no, the Department of Buildings will not issue LNOs if there are outstanding, what they call life-threatening violations. Most violations, 99%, they consider life-threatening, and they will not issue an LNO unless those violations are cured.
Thank
You're
you.
incorrect. You're incorrect.
Angel,
All right, that's
Angel, let me,
the experience of many people.
Adam, I'm going to go to Angel so he can opine on this because we had information emailed to us.
Okay.
We had a research with DOB. So Angel.
Sure. So we received an email from a constituent with a list of DOB complaints, and we contacted our folks at the Department of Buildings, and they have confirmed that most of those complaints have been cured with the exception of the most recent one, for which a violation was issued and a fine, subject to a fine of $500. The building owner has an opportunity until May 4th to cure, but it's for a violation of the LNO, of the letter of no objection. So essentially the cure for that is to get, hold on, let me read her words exactly. 1 second. The respondent needs to amend the certificate of occupancy, pay the violation, and submit a certificate of correction. That's the latest.
Thank you. That was as of today with the Department of Buildings. So I just wanted to shed light on that. So I then bring back to the committee. Are there any further questions? Because I think the greater concern, and this is before you came.
Could you
Ma'am,
establish?
ma'am.
No, I would like to have established which of the 3 buildings with violations have a LNO that needs to be edited. Which of the 3?
Ma'am, we can look into that. Angel, if you have that accessible, we can, but I had to move my agenda along and we'll gladly dig into that. Angel, do you have that accessible at the moment?
Looking in the email right now to confirm exactly what the complaint pointed to and what the violation pointed to.
And in the meantime, ma'am, I'm going to recognize Jessica Elliott.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to confirm what I heard from Angel, which was that the violation of the LNO would have need to have been resolved by April 4th. Is that correct?
May 4th.
May 4th. Thank you.
All right, Adam.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, a lot of this is beyond my pay grade. I'm not an engineer or an expediter with the Department of Buildings. However, I've gotten, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 LNOs, both approved and rejected. And my understanding is, again, first of all, they don't issue the LNO unless there are no life-threatening violations. And 2 is once the LNO is issued, the LNO is basically a letter of no objection. It's just literally that. It's a letter. And it states that we do not object to eating and drinking establishment at 508 East 172, which means I'm saying that to say that you cannot violate the LNO. The LNO is issued, and it's after that, a year after that, now all of a sudden there are violations, new violations. Let's say, for example, you're not necessarily violating the LNO. They don't revoke the LNO. The LNO is a letter that has a date, April 2021. And on this day, we certify that we approve eating and drinking at this establishment. That's basically the letter of no objection to my knowledge. And I've done about 30 of them.
Okay, thank you very much. Anwal. Angel, have you found?
Yes, the address is 508 East 117th Street.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not the address in question now, is it? Come on, guys, please be focused.
Ma'am, you've
Excuse
not
me.
been.
Excuse me.
We're out of line.
I'm going to mute everyone.
Please, yes,
because
thank you.
Okay. We received, so for the record, for those that don't know, my name is Angel Miskin. I'm the district manager of Community Board 11, and our office received complaints from constituents that we responded to by contacting the Department of Buildings, as I spoke about earlier. The response we got from the Department of Buildings, I indicated here. The address was the address provided by the person submitting the complaint. We did not make up an address. We went simply, and we literally forwarded the complaints that were shared with us. And those addresses were 508 East 117th Street.
Thank you, Angel, for clarifying.
I'll also clarify, the DOB is asking me.
Em,
as
have
a
you been
building
you have
owner-
not, please mute her because she has not been recognized and you're out of order, ma'am. Respectfully, thank you. Stephanie Arroyo.
Hi, so I know someone from public safety made a comment about us having an issue with the 25th precinct. When was the last time that we had an issue with this place and with whatever was going on there that the police had to intervene?
Okay. Angel, when was the last 311 or 911 associated with Lighthouse Fish Market?
I don't have 311s at hand. I could find them. I have to take down the presentation.
Yeah.
But at the licenses and permits committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, the 311s were shared, and there were only, if I'm remembering correctly, 5 for this establishment. But I will go off mic right now and go back into our files and confirm that.
Okay, please double check that. Thank you very much. In the meantime, I am asking everyone, you direct the comments to the chair respectfully, and you wait to be recognized. Otherwise, we cannot have a discourse. We have Robert's Rules of Order to follow our protocol and to be able to be respectful. So that is what I'm asking you to proceed so we can keep the meeting moving along efficiently. Ma'am, I will recognize you. You may unmute yourself and ask your question. Please keep it succinct. Ms. Soul?
Yeah, so the email that was sent to the Department of Buildings, the State Liquor Authority, the CB11, and NYPD and the mayor's office explained the 3 addresses and 5 buildings that have been combined to create this dual establishment, now secondarily named Room 112 and the Lighthouse Fish Market. Let's not confuse the point. The Lighthouse Fish Market is at 508 East 117th Street. That address comprises 2 buildings, front and rear. Second floor is being used. It abuts my properties, plural. My tenants have had it with the noise. 510 and 512 were adjacent to 508, different block and lot, and those have been combined with 508. The email is very clear. If the CB11 team that's received the email missed the point, it's unfortunate. The Department of Buildings has responded to us, sending out inspectors in the next few days because they wish access to our buildings in order to assess what they have been denied access to for over a year. I'm
Thank
a
you.
licensed architect in the state of New York, a property owner in East Harlem, and I live on the block in question.
Thank
I
you.
don't have another question. I
No,
want
thank you.
the
Thank
word
you for
to
your
make yourself familiar.
Thank you for your clarification. I am looking at everything and it only lists 508. So everything that was forwarded to us was in 508. There's no 510. There's no reference to that. I understand your point, and I'm going to move the agenda along as soon as Angel comes back, and we will carry on. Board members, are there any other questions for the representative of the applicant? Please raise your hands. And please make sure to mute yourselves when you're not speaking because it echoes to other people because the speakers go back into a loop. Thank you. Okay. With that, so Adam, I think and I know you're coming into this midstream. One thing I will say is that when they added this ad bar, they didn't come before us. And I think our greater concern, and as you were there during the Licenses and Permits Committee, was that there is a deep reservation for renewing a license that never presented to us in the first place, which was that additional one, 60.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you saw on the floor that day, there was a push to deny the renewal flat out.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a space where the owner would be willing to surrender 60, reapply under new terms and conditions in a faithful extension to us, and still keep what he was willing to do with the reduction of hours on 59?
I'm not at liberty to answer that, but I can tell you my gut feeling. No one's going to surrender a license they already have acquired to come back and have another conversation. Like I said, we can converse about this tonight, any other night. You can deny the renewal of that secondary license if you so wish, but he's not going to surrender a license. I think it's fair to say, very fair to say that this place started on the wrong foot, so to speak, but it has since corrected some of the, misfortune that happened or whatever, lack of communication, and it has changed and morphed into a much, much better location than it started 2 years ago.
And I hear what you're saying. And so just to recognize again, because they did not, and that was an admission of SLA's mistake, they did not present to the board that was registered. And as we began, but hold on, Adam, hold on. Let me finish.
When you say SLA mistake, I got to clarify something.
Well, I mean, I've had this confirmed by Michael down at SLA. They
I
didn't
understand, but the mistake is not that they did not notify community board, because if that happens, the SLA will revoke the license. They'll take it away. We don't have to surrender it.
So let me finish. Not necessarily, because we went down that route. Okay, so that's not necessarily factual, because again, there was an overlap of two people retiring and one taking over. So that was an oversight. Yeah, and they're one-offs, and he apologized. So here we are at the beginning of the year. We started, and I want to keep this meeting as soon as Angel's going along. I'm going to push to call a question. The reality is that yes, they did get off on the wrong foot. When we started our year's session, we asked ourselves 3 simple questions: have they been, are they being, or will they be a good community partner and neighbor? We received evidence that could insinuate that a lot of the same traffic and issues and noise, and again, much to the chagrin of the witness who sent us the video, was being compelled not to do it out of fear of retribution by her partner. So we can't divulge that publicly at this point. I'm not going to, for privacy. It did call into question because it happened even immediately after the SLA meeting, that we were having loud music in that area and disturbances. So I think that is why I'm asking the question: would there be a world where you'd be willing to do that, reapply under a separate new license, and step forward in good faith as a good community partner? And I think that's the question, as well as keeping what he was willing to do with number 59. So that's the question I'm asking you directly.
Yeah, that's, to be honest with you, that's complicated. And I don't think, if I were in his shoes, I would not surrender a liquor license that I already have. They use both bars. They really do. And they pay highly for it, by the way. You have 2 bars, you pay twice as much to liquor authority. It's a big fee.
I know liquor is a giant step. So you've answered my question. Thank you. Angel, are you back?
The 5311s were for noise complaints.
Okay.
And they were within the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to now see any other board members. Do you have questions or their positions? Adem, I saw you come on screen. I thought your hand came up.
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'd like to move the agenda along. I will recognize one last time, Ms. Sol, your question.
Yes, thank you so much. When I email CB11 chair at CB11M.org, and I email Mr. Muscane at CB11M.org, how would my email be misinterpreted, cut up, or forwarded from that direct email?
Nothing was cut up. Angel, if you'd speak to it, please.
The attachments in the email that was forwarded by Mr. Palmetto have in them various addresses, along with screenshots of the Department of Buildings issues with the buildings. And those addresses differ from 508. 508 is one of the 3 for the 5 buildings on the 2 lots.
Thank you. Angel, I'll allow you to respond. Then I'm going to move the meeting along. Thank you.
This is the last time I'll say this. I forwarded the email and information provided by the constituent to DOB. There was no interpretation, no editing, no matter what the suggestion of this individual is. Literally what they sent, we forwarded. That's it.
I'm the author, so that being said, I know what was sent to
Ma'am.
you, and I got an
Ma'am.
answer from the Department of Buildings that they would work to
Ma'am.
get access.
Ma'am, I'm going to move the meeting along. Angel has responded. Nilsa.
The Department of Buildings, as I stated earlier,
Go ahead, Angel.
again, responded that all complaints, including the ones that you're indicating now, were cured according to the Department of Buildings.
Okay, thank
And
you.
the only one open, because this person is insisting, the only one open, as I said a few minutes ago, was the most recent one that they're subject to a fine for.
And
I think it's
that's in
very
writing.
important. I think it's very important that people understand what the community board office does, and that the insinuation that something incorrect is being done has to be challenged each time, because it undermines the work and the reputation of the community board. In this instance, for the fourth time now, I will say that literally what this person submitted was forwarded. Nothing was touched by the community board office, so it's very clear. And that is what the Department of Buildings for the City of New York reviewed and responded to.
Okay.
And if that is something that this individual refuses to understand or is dissatisfied with, I understand that it's a dissatisfaction, but that does not mean that the community board office in any way, shape, or form, or at any time would remove, edit in any way, or color what is being submitted by our constituents, who it is our job to serve and assist to the best of our ability. If you're dissatisfied, I understand. If you're having a loud neighbor, I understand. This community board has had now 6 meetings about this establishment with long conversations every single time. So the board is taking it seriously, and I will not sit here and allow anyone to cast any kind of aspersions as to the work of the board, much less the work of the office. As I stated before, my name is Angel Muscane. I'm the district manager for Community Board 11. You have my email. We have office hours every day of the week. If you wish to speak to me, you feel free to, but don't you dare suggest that our office does anything but its job.
Thank you very much, Angel. Nilsa, I'm going to go and I'm going to move I'd like to call the question with the recommendations previously that were presented to license and permits. Nilsa?
I'm sorry, Chair. I just wanted to echo. Actually, I wanted to say something before Angel said, but he basically said everything that I felt. I'm a lifelong community member. I've lived here all my life. I've had the pleasure of service with this board since 2014. I've had the pleasure of leading this board for 4 years. And I will tell you that the office staff, as well as the community board members, are all top notch and honest. We have been working to try to resolve this issue. And so while I understand all your angst and everything that you're feeling, I really must tell you that I take exception as a member of this body, as someone who has led it. Ma'am, please be assured. I know that you are coming under Mr. Palmetto's Zoom. I don't know who I'm talking to other than your name. But please be assured that the people you see on camera and off camera of Community Board 11 takes this extremely seriously. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Nilsa. Adam, I think you've heard some very serious concerns, and I would hope you would take this directly back to the owner. I can't impress it enough because this has absorbed so much time. And as you know, full stop, it is the only commodity we have in this life. And I have personally spent time doing a walk through the facility, as has Adem, who I'm going to go to now. Adem, would you mind humoring us and coming on and refreshing our memory with the positions that licenses and permits, because as was mentioned, we can take a position. If he doesn't feel like the applicant will surrender willfully, we could oppose one, which we did last time, and for the reasons we've recorded in the previous meeting and this one, and then take under advisement or take the recommendations on that he was willing to adjust his hours of operations as agreed to during licenses and permits. If you'd like to speak on that more specifically, and then I'd like to move this to a vote. Okay.
Well, I mean, at this last month's committee meeting, there was confusion with the voting, but excuse me, there originally was a motion to deny, just deny outright. That didn't carry. Then there was a motion to send it to this committee because we were informed that there would be some video evidence and that we couldn't see it that night. And so I actually invited everyone from my committee to be on here tonight. I think they all got the video evidence shared with them so they could see it, because we didn't feel like then we had the whole picture. There was some talk about then modifying hours. I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m. And then I think like the last point, and you've said it already, Xavier, but that I'll harp on, is this committee, this board approved Lighthouse Fish Market for a liquor license. And that was presented as a very different business than I think has been operating there, is operating there, was operating there. And so it comes back to, I think, what I said at the committee meeting: how do we renew something that we didn't really approve in the first place? We didn't support this application as it is in front of us now originally, and now we're being asked to renew it. I mean, your idea of asking them to surrender the one license, I think that's very reasonable. I personally, and I'm only speaking out for myself, I'm comfortable with approving that with which I approved the first time. If they wish to come back and present this other business, then I'd be comfortable with hearing that out and going from there. But as far as I know, back whenever we approved this the first time, I approved it for a fish restaurant that was going to serve some drinks. There was no talks about a room 112, a lounge, or any of those things. And then a license was given to a business for that without us ever getting to opine on it or comment on it. And like you said, this has wasted a lot of our time. And I'm happy to do the work, but I don't think any liquor license should take this much time for a community board, to be honest. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Adem, would you like to make a motion to that effect?
No, I don't want to make the motion.
Tim, board members, I'm just grabbing my pen. Would a member like to make an emotion to disapprove the license ending in 6-0, and then what would you like to do? And then the other one that's before us, which was expressly for Lighthouse Fish Market, with the reduction of hours referenced in the license and permits meeting, which we can go back to, which I think was reducing the weekend hours to like 1 or so, and then 11 or so during the weekdays, because it is a residential. I think that's what was discussed. Is that correct, Adem, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, yeah.
Okay. As the chair, I can't make the motion, but I will. Jessica?
And I guess sorry about my cat. I just have a question. Is it possible to approve with conditions the license with ending in 5-9 and deny the application ending in 6-0?
That should be a possibility. Correct me if I'm wrong, Angel. Yes, Angel, your hand.
I actually had I'm sorry, I was gonna wait, but I had a question for Mr. Powell.
Go ahead, please.
Adam, the notification that we received indicated specifically 459. And in the information that we received from the SLA, 459 is for room 112 per their list, because they have it listed with room 112 on license 459 and Lighthouse Fish Market on license 560. Like I know before you said that the renewal was for both. If you could clarify that, because the notification that we got specifically says 459. I don't believe it says 460 as well.
Okay, if any establishment has 2 liquor licenses, whether they either got them the same day or they added a second bar, both of those 2 licenses are joined so that they both expire and get renewed at the same time.
Okay, thank you. So then, if back to Jessica, if I'm remembering the question correctly, so then per what Mr. Powers just expressed, then what's before us is to consider both licenses. So the position should be on both licenses and should speak, like, if there are particularities that you want to say about this or that license, then you should certainly feel free to. If I misunderstood, then please correct me.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
2 licenses, but again, they both are joined. Same.
No, I meant if Jessica, if I was incorrect in answering Jessica's question. I understood you, Adam.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Angel. I'm so sorry, but based on the information that we've received and heard about the complaints, my motion is to deny the application for a full liquor license renewal at 1325459.
Okay, is there a second? Nilsa, I see your hand raised.
I second the motion.
Okay, Angel, please call the roll, and a new practice we're putting into place and something we'll discuss when we get into the review of draft agenda and committee chair reports is that the chair of each committee shall vote last on the measure. Go ahead, Angel.
Jose Altamirano?
This is to deny, correct?
Yes.
Okay, in favor.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Jessica?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Marissa's out. Nelsa?
Aye.
Xavier?
I'll go at the end. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you meant the committee chair. All right. Isaac?
No.
Jason? Michelle?
Yes.
Adem?
Yes.
I didn't hear you. And Xavier?
Did you get John Green?
I did.
Okay. Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much, Adam, for being with us. We can have a postmortem conversation about it and speak about how we can restore better working relations in light of the information delivered tonight.
You got it. As I mentioned before, we'll come up every 2 years. And if again, the need comes, we can come back at any point within those 2 years.
I appreciate that. My recommendation is going to be that post haste, you establish a communication line so we can work on the quality of life issues in the
Right.
neighborhood. Please
And
carry
to be
forward
honest
that
with you,
message from the
yes.
public. Okay.
If they do get renewed, which they probably will, to be honest with you, let's look forward and not look back. In other words, I don't want to come here 2 years from now and again start talking about the one license that they would never apply with us, that sort of thing. We understand that the secondary license was never before Community Board 11. That cannot change. But again, we can have conversations about the method of operation for that secondary license and the primary. So hopefully we can get past the fact that they never came to community board and move forward, look into a better future.
Yeah, this is a bit more extensive than that, which is why I'm recommending sit down and perhaps coming to the board office. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to move the meeting along. Thank you, Adam, for being
You
with
got
us. Okay, we're going to move along to the informational presentation regarding the 2017 East Harlem rezoning commitments with Abigail Lieber, our CB11 intern, who I know has done a great deal of work. Abigail, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, welcome. The floor is yours, and we are very excited. I remember living through this experience during the rezoning. So much fun. So please.
I'm just going to share my screen. Great. Can everyone see it? Yes. Okay, perfect. So I'll just introduce myself. Hi, everybody. My name is Abigail, and I'm an intern at Community Board 11. And I'm a senior at Hunter College. I'm majoring in urban studies. And Angel tasked me with researching the points of agreement and looking at which commitments haven't been addressed yet.
and looking at the tracker and seeing what the different agencies have said they've done, what they haven't done, and then coming to you guys and providing some suggestions for next steps. So there are some commitments that aren't on the public tracker. So there's 2 of them that I want to bring to your attention. So the first one is to fund local workforce development training. So $150,000 was designated for this project, and it's not on the tracker. And I think for transparency reasons, it's important that we get it on the tracker now so we can see what the status is of this commitment and bring it to SBS's attention so that they act on it and that we get this important workforce development training for the community. Another commitment is to expand opportunities for minority and women-owned business enterprises, MWBEs, in the affordable housing development industry. So this one is also not on the tracker, but it's interesting because it is on the tracker for downtown Far Rockaway in East New York. So my understanding is it was probably a mistake on their part for this not being on the tracker. But it's important that if it's on their tracker, it's on our tracker so that we make sure for HPD projects that MWBEs are being considered. So now I wanted to bring to your attention also 5 commitments that I think are a priority to address. And these all require reaching out to the respective agencies and then providing follow-up and acting on the commitment. So I'm going to go through them just read through them, and then I'm going to go through them more in depth. So the first one is increase access to employment opportunities for local residents by establishing a satellite Workforce One Career Center in East Harlem. Then we have locate additional benches in areas that provide respite for seniors, fund a safe routes to school study and implement new routes in East Harlem, study parking requirements in East Harlem, and increase the number of schools that offer career and technical education programs. So first we have the Satellite Workforce One Career Center. So this text is according to the trackers. This is what they've said that they've done so far. So they write that they have been using a mobile operating unit to provide services to East Harlem residents, and that they also have 2 full-time staff that are dedicated towards helping our community receive employment opportunities. And they write that they've been working with community partners to assist the area. But they don't mention actually having establishing the Satellite Workforce One Career Center. So they're talking about what they're doing, but not about the actual center being built. And again, $500,000 was designated for this project. And it appears that they don't have an intention at the moment of establishing the center, and that's not on their agenda. I don't know if they looked at any spaces yet or have been working towards it, but according to the tracker, it appears that they haven't been doing anything yet. And I think it's important that they address this commitment, especially with the $500,000 being designated. And they've been doing all their work out of the central Harlem location. But it's important, if they made this commitment, that East Harlem residents get this Satellite Workforce One Center in their community. Okay, great. So the next commitment we have is locate additional benches in areas that provide respite for seniors. So on the right, you have a map of where all the city benches are. The different colors represent different kinds of benches. And there's currently 61 benches in East Harlem. And the commitment specifically said that DOT will place up to 25 city benches in the area based on our requests. And I've looked at all these benches when they were installed, and most of them were before the points of agreement, and I think less than 5 have been installed since. So my recommendations is to reach out to DOT, either come to them with a list of locations where we'd like to see benches, or have someone from DOT come to meet and talk about different options for these benches, especially since this commitment is one of the easier ones to be addressed, is putting up benches. And it still hasn't gotten done since 2017. I think it's important to bring it to their attention. I've spoken to Angel, and he said that no one from DOT has ever come to us saying, and they want to get these benches up. So we have to bring it to their attention so that we can get it done. Next, we have fund a safe routes to school study and implement new routes in East Harlem. So a safe routes to school study, an SRTS study, was done in 2007. And since then, DOT claims that they've made sweeping citywide safety policy changes and specific capital investments that benefited East Harlem. The tracker also states that this summer they plan to install a curb extension and pedestrian islands to improve safety. But according to this tracker, again, it appears that they don't actually plan to do this study, but use this existing data from 2007, which is definitely an issue. $1 million was designated for this project to fund the study and implement new routes. And it appears that they don't have this on their agenda to get done. And they are going to use that existing data from 2007. But since then, schools have changed and moved, new daycare centers opened, and new bike lanes have been installed. So I think it's really important that we bring this to DOT's attention and find out if they do plan to fund this study. And if they're not, then we have to demand that it gets done, because it's important that the kids in the area can walk to school safely. So the next commitment is to study parking requirements in East Harlem. So there was already a study being done back in 2019. The study, they were going to address this commitment back in 2019, and they commenced the study, and it had to be put on hold because of COVID. And according to the tracker, DOT claims that they're going to revisit it when it is possible to ascertain the medium and long-term effects of the pandemic. But I think now is a great time for them to restart the study, either continue it or start a new one. Because although driving patterns and parking have changed, it appears that what we've got now is here to stay. And now is a perfect time to bring it to their attention and reach out and say, hey, we have a study, let's get it going again. And yeah, things have changed, but I think we have to bring this to DOT's attention and get this started. And next, the commitment I want to address is to increase the number of schools that offer career and technical education programs, CTE programs. So Manhattan Center for Science and Mathematics, they actually have a CTE program in pre-engineering, but it lacks the New York State certification. And I think it's important that they get the certification and we reach out to DOE and find out what the status of this state certification from New York State is, and get this progressed, because it's been since 2017. So they should have the certification. And also, why are we only focusing on Manhattan Center for Science and Mathematics when there's other schools in the area that would significantly benefit from having CTE programs? And the commitment was to increase the number of schools. So we shouldn't aim for one, we should aim for many. And right now we have 0. So I think it's definitely important to reach out to DOE, see what the status of the certification is, and also recommend additional schools that can benefit from having CTE programs developed and get those started, because if it takes a long time to get the certification, we should get it going now. So I also have a few other additional comments that I wanted to bring to your attention. So the first one is invest in capital improvements within 17 NYCHA developments and early childhood centers. So for this commitment, there are 17 different projects that there's a lot of projects that they wanted to do, and none of them have gotten started yet. A lot of them are in the works, but they've been continuously delayed. So I think it's important that NYCHA comes to us, or we reach out to them and we ask for a status on these projects. I know a lot of times these NYCHA projects can take a while, but there's continuously been delays. And on the tracker, a lot of these projects say that they've started or they're going to start in 2022. And I look on the NYCHA projects tracker and they haven't even started yet. So there's also a need for some more transparency on the status of all these projects that they're working on, and that they actually get done in a timely manner. And the next commitment is to modify parking and commercial delivery, loading and unloading regulations along 125th Street. So on the tracker, DOT explains that there was a smart truck management plan that was released in May 2021, which addressed commercial loading regulations, improving truck safety, and reducing congestion. And it only mentioned 125th Street twice. It mentions how that there's poor air quality and congestion on the street, and that there's also meters in place. But it doesn't actually mention how it's going to modify anything on 125th Street. It's just talking in general terms. But on the tracker, it says that this commitment is done, but it's unclear if it's actually done based on this smart truck management plan. So I think some further clarification is needed from DOT if they have modified this parking and commercial delivery, loading and unloading regulation, or if they've just released a plan which talks about the future and how they want to make improvements in general to New York City. The next commitment is improve wayfinding to Randall's Island. So this commitment on the tracker, it mentions how they've installed 14 wayfinding signs to Randall's Island to help residents get to that area. But on the tracker, it says in progress, which I don't know if it makes so much sense. I think it appears to be done. So I think that we just need to reach out to DOT and update on that on the tracker if they are done, and make sure that we have that updated for transparency, so it's all clear. And then I just have a few commitments to keep in mind and continue addressing. So the first one is renovations of La Marqueta, which have been put on hold because of the Park Avenue Viaduct project. But I know that the committee and community board have been working on addressing this project and making sure it doesn't get forgotten. And then the next three are expand the Harlem River Greenway link to connect 125th and 132nd Street, make improvements to the East River Esplanade from 96th to 125th Street, and build a comfort station in Harlem River Park. And I know that the Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee has been working on these projects, and they're going to take a while, but they're definitely being addressed. And then the last one is working with community stakeholders, plan for the development of an enclosed consolidated DSNY sanitation facility for M10 and M11, which meets LEED Gold standards. And I've spoken to Angel at length about this commitment, and I know how complicated it is. So just to continue working with different partners and stakeholders to get this commitment done, which will also probably take a while, but just to keep on everyone's radar. Okay, great. So that's what I've got, and I'd love to answer any questions. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Jessica, you have your hand raised, and Michelle.
Abigail, nice to meet you in almost in person. Thank you so much for all of your hard work on this. I know it's something that all of our committees have been working on, but hopefully we can use this knowledge to, it sounds like we can populate our next couple months worth of agendas here. So thank you for helping us move forward in this. And just to note that I will be adding the Randall's Island wayfinding to double check on that to my upcoming meeting for Environment, Open Space and Parks. Last I heard, I thought it was completed, but I'll double check on that. And just to let everyone know, on the DSNY side, that we have reached out to the Independent Budget Office to do research on funding that is being spent by DSNY across the city, and to see if there's any argument that we can make in regards to where that money is being spent and why it should be spent in East Harlem. So that process is just getting started. So we'll keep you updated. But thank you so much, Abby. Look forward to working with you on this, and really appreciate all the work that you put in.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Michelle.
Hi, thank you, Abby, so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I apologize, I can't put my camera on, or I'll probably get disconnected again. I have two questions for you. One, you had mentioned that there were two different types of park benches, something easy to do and to implement. What were the two types of park benches, and were the benches, are they placed in the parks, or these are benches that are for outside the parks, since they were specifically for senior citizens that you had mentioned?
Yeah, so the commitment doesn't specifically say where they have to be placed. On the map that I showed, there were little dots that were different colors. So the different colors represented different kinds of city benches, whether they have a back or not. And it didn't say specifically where the benches have to be. So I think that there's some wiggle room for the community board to look at different locations.
Okay, thank you. And the second question dealt with the second to last slide, where you had spoken about places on 125th Street and the parking. I was curious to find out, did they do a survey to say that it had been completed, or how did they establish that this had come to fruition? How did they establish that it's all done, and what was your conclusion?
Yeah, so a lot of my research was looking at the tracker and seeing what they've said they've done, and they have said they've completed it. I haven't gone out to the street and seen exactly what regulations are in place, but I read through the plan and I didn't see anything specifically about exact changes they've made. Like I mentioned, they mentioned 125th Street twice, just saying that there are commercial meters in place, and that it's a very heavily used road with lots of congestion. So it didn't specifically address any next steps or what they were going to do, just talking about the certain truck management plan in general. So I'm a little unclear if they've completed the commitment. So I think that definitely needs follow-up from them. They might have done something and it's not on the tracker.
Okay, thank you. I will definitely take a further look at this. I appreciate your conclusion and your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. George, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I just want to point out, we recently, just a couple of days ago, got a report from the Independent Budget Office, which looked at 6 of the rezonings that happened and the commitments that were made during that time. And it's really essential. The work that Abigail did is essential to get down to brass tacks and specific things. But big picture, that report said that when it was written in 2021, that East Harlem had $50 million in commitments, but $200 million in unmet commitments, meaning commitments that were not in the budget. And that is very different than the other rezonings, which all had over $150 million in commitments, and some had over $200 million in commitments. And, you know, I'm sure a big chunk of that is the garage, right? You know, which is not in there and you're working on it. But, you know, as you're having these discussions, Jessica, with sanitation, this is leverage, right? When you look at those charts and you see like what these other rezoning areas got and the, you know, promises and commitments, and you're looking at East Harlem, you know, I just looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the smoking gun here is that, you know, there were all these promises made and they're not being fulfilled, little ones to big ones, right? It really ranges the, you know, it really runs the gamut. And, you know, yeah, following up is what we need to, is what the board should be doing. I think getting people from DCP in here and like showing them these numbers, like, hello, what's up? And, you know, if you're not going to do that, well, then what else are you going to do? And just, unless you really stick up for your rights and enforce, you know, these commitments that have been made, they're not going to be. And you shouldn't have to. And I'm just like, it's just like, it's embarrassing to me. I was part of this process, right? And I'm embarrassed that the city hasn't come through like they promised to. And it's just really disappointing.
Thank you, George Janes, who has been our land use consultant for a long time. You're a great educator, an advocate, and a guide. Very thankful. And I know that, again, it's not just this agency, but multiple agencies that are derelict in their responsibilities and not embracing, you know, their commitments. So thank you for that. And thank you, Abigail, for highlighting in this deck. And I recommend all of our chairs here, elected leaders, to review it again. Angel, saw that smile, come on.
I just wanted to, I have a correction, because that's not what George's reaction was when he told me that he had read that report from the IBO. I can't say what he said, but that's not what he said. He knows what he said. Abigail, a great job. I knew you would do a great job because I saw the deck before. I just wanted to take the opportunity, because we don't always get to speak to our interns and, you know, with the executive committee. So, you know, I didn't want to lose the opportunity to say something. You saw, you know, Abigail's work and, you know, how thoughtful she's been about it, but she's been like that the whole time. Like, she's been with us now 2 sessions. Like, she like re-upped with us. And we're very, very fortunate to have her. Like, we've had many interns in the office, and, you know, like, you know, there's different levels of productivity, and, you know, there's some interns that stand out, and Abigail certainly has. And Abigail doesn't need prodding. She just goes and does it. I tell all the interns at the beginning when I first meet them that I get super busy and I forget that they're sitting out there, that they need to come and remind me to give them stuff. Abigail did not have that problem. Abigail from the first day was like, I'm a man. I need work to do, and then produced, right? And then, like, one little last thing that I really thought was great, and I think another, you know, example of putting George Janes in his place, which is necessary. Like, don't fall for the nice guy act. I gave Abigail a complete BSA application, which everybody else puts to sleep, and she prepared the memo without me asking her, right? Or without much instruction, right? Which is great, and that's what George does for us all the time. So, not to say that we need to get rid of George, but I'm just saying, like, other people could do this work, so just to, like, we need to humble George sometimes. Yes, he does great work, but you got to put him in his place. It's important. Nah, I'm just kidding. Abby, great job.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Abigail. I don't see any other hands. Again, chairs, take a look at the deck. She did a lot of great work. And again, this may seem a little boring at times, but it's actually, when you get into the weeds and you see how it has a real world impact on all of us, it's massive. So thank you, Abigail, for doing this work and turning with us. And I was glad to meet you in person a couple of times. So well done. And you have your hand raised. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add that I'm still going to be here for the rest of the semester. So if there's anything you guys want, like, I can help reach out and just let me know with the intern email.
Brilliant. That is an offer. Okay, wonderful. With that, I'm going to move us along, and thank you so much, Abigail. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And we'll get the screen back up. We're now going to move on to the review of a draft agenda for the upcoming full board. Waiting for that to be pulled up. Just bear with us.
I was talking. I was saying I don't have it ready. Give me 2 seconds. I don't have it up.
No problem. No problem. Also,
No, no singing though.
No, I gave up that a long time ago. But a shameless plug for our Earth Day conference. Please come out tomorrow at 10 a.m. For those that want to volunteer or participate, we would love to have you out there.
Okay, see if this works. You all seeing the agenda? Yes. All right, so standard. We do have a public hearing. Before I start, should I make the text larger?
Please.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, so standard, and then we have a public hearing, as was mentioned earlier in this meeting, on the land use applications for the Sharon OIC project at 244 East 106th Street. The applicant is HPD, and the development team is Ascendant Neighborhood Development and the Alley Forney Center. So we'll get, those that haven't seen one of these presentations before, I just described very briefly. We'll hear a presentation about the project with the deck. And then we'll take some, brief questions. This has been presented to land use multiple times and will be coming to multiple committees in the month of May. So we don't have to exhaust all of our questions at this hearing. This is, more of an opportunity for the public to be informed about the project and for it to ask its questions. So it's been at land use, and we have them penciled in for the Housing Committee, the Human Services Committee, and the Youth and Education Committee. The project, for those of you that haven't had an opportunity to look into, I'll describe very, very briefly. It's a supportive housing for homeless LGBTQ youth. So that's why we're sending it to youth, and that's why we're sending it to human services, and that's why we're sending it to housing, and that's why it has to be at land use, right? So we wanted to have an opportunity to talk about each one of those pieces, but be able to have a full conversation about each one of those individual pieces, because I think you'd agree that that merits a conversation and an understanding. Jason Villanueva, the chair of the Land Use Committee, and Jessica Morris, a member of the Land Use Committee, and I had the opportunity to visit a facility, a transitional housing facility that the Alley Forney Center operates for the same population down in the East Village. It's the Bay Arthur residence. And we had, an opportunity to learn how the place functions, how people get referred there, how people get referred out of there. When this project in our district is completed, should be completed, it will be permanent supportive housing, right? So folks that will be, folks that are currently at the, other transitional housing facilities would, quote unquote, graduate to permanent supportive housing. So folks that go in through their program would then get referred to places such as what this is promising to be. So our it was referred to us on April 5th, as I gave you explained before, and our review ends on June 25th. So, May will be, very busy with us having these conversations at committee and preparing our response. Okay. Then in the business session, standard, now I'll pause here because I know Xavier last month was putting in like committee chair reports. Did you want to include those here? Or did you want me to kind of keep rolling through?
No, just keep rolling through and we'll
Okay.
separate the.
All
chair.
right. So as usual, we just list the agenda. We list the committees in the order that they met the current month. So we have parks and housing and licenses. Neither parks nor housing had an action item. Please stop me if we don't have an action item here that you actually did pass. This is a draft, but as far as I know, they didn't pass any. Licenses and permits, of course, always has applications. I'll go slow. So a method of operation for Bar Guyana, a new application for Sol Maya, a new application for Sushi W, a new application for Legends Boathouse in Central Park, a renewal for Hastings, a method of operation change for Boca Prime, a temporary permit for El Barrio's art space. Then street activity permits, the Mile Festival, what's her name? I forgot her name. The HHFM East Harlem Market, but I forgot her name. Ritza Owens. She has two that we all know and love. Then the Skyscraper Classic, and a block party on August 4th on East 127th Street. And then Human Services has a recommendation extending the board's resolution asking for a moratorium on any new rehabilitation, chemical dependency and treatment centers, blah, blah, blah. And Youth and Education, recommendation for letter of support for the graphics program and their acquisition of funding from the Department of Justice, and including expanding their work in CD11. Land use did not have any action items. Public safety did not have any action items. ECHO has action items. I haven't them in yet because I haven't been at my desk to write them down. But the Economic Development Committee did a letter of support for Pat Martin's Pride event at the Silverman School, and I'm forgetting right now. It'll come to me in a second. Budget didn't have any items, and executive is tonight.
Well, and you had executive where we are ratifying the Cinco de Mayo fiesta. That should be in there. Is that in there?
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, that after full board.
Okay, I'll add that for the student activities.
Yep.
Okay.
Mayo. Okay, great. Michelle, you have a question?
To my understanding, there were 2 action items for public safety and transportation.
I wasn't there. Which were they?
I'm going to contact Jose to have him state them.
Okay. All right, and I'll double check with Khalid.
Okay, let me just look here.
Oh, was it the bus stop? Yeah, the bus stop.
It was the bus stop, yes.
And the 5G. You're correct. I'll add
Yes.
those. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was gonna.
Yep.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for going over that. Any other questions? See there none. We will go on to our committee chair reports, and I'm just going to go alphabetical order, I guess. We can go. Was it district needs? Stephanie here? Did we lose her?
I'll have them soon. Don't have them yet.
Okay. Okay, do you want to just give us a brief summary?
Sure. So, let me give you that space, sorry. So we recently met with the district needs committee. I'm trying to see how I can engage the district needs committee better. I feel like we're kind of missing the ball in really working as a working group that we should be. So last night's meeting was pretty much like a recap, looking over the timeline, the new timeline that we have. What are our next steps? We're hoping to meet again in May and follow up and change some of our steps. Some of the steps that we're thinking of changing is, especially during the budget process, not just having the vice presidents there, but also having chairs meet with us, and also making sure that the portion of district needs is an actual item on your agendas for each of your committees, so that conversation is had and we can get feedback. We're also hoping to work on maybe some response to the budget once the council puts out their preliminary before it gets completely signed off on. It's not something that we have to do, but I'm aiming to do that to kind of get the committee used to responding and engaging when it comes to council, and which is what we should be doing. So it would be very important, since I am here with the executive board, that you guys make sure that within your committee, you know, I know I'm gonna make it my business to reach out to you, reach out to the VPs, and remind you guys that if there's anything on the agendas or there's any conversations that are being had in committees that have to do with any legislation that's coming out or any budget needs that we need to be aware of, so we can put this in our budget request or change our budget request or whatever there be. I'm hoping you guys can help me do that. And that's pretty much it.
Great. Thank you very much, Steph. And I enjoyed being on the meeting last night. I think it was a great recommendation that I think it was Angel mentioned, that having it report back at each committee. So the vice chairs, when they show up for their actual committees, whether it's housing or parks or what have you, they're reporting back on what they discussed at the top. I thought that was a great idea to keep everyone in full circle. So I think reinforcing that. But yeah, we're here and whatever we can do to help. So thank you. We don't have Giselle here or Marissa, so I'm going to move along to environments, open space, and parks. Jessica?
Great, thank you, Chair. My report is, and the meeting minutes are for informational purposes only. Obviously, we have no action items. We did have a presentation by Central Park Conservancy Drive study. This is a study that is ongoing for Central Park. Essentially, the park has been operating with the same road systems and things since it was created and first paved in 1912. So cars were officially banned in 2018. So all of the roadways still have sort of car-centric traffic lights and things like that. So they're hoping to understand from all of Manhattan, but particularly they would like input from East Harlem on their study to see how people are using the parks, how people are getting around, whether that's by bike, walking. They're studying sort of the incident reports and basically how to make the park drive areas more appropriate for their uses and safer for everyone to use. So I'll post the link to that in the chat, and then I will do the same at full board. We did also talk at length about Earth Day planning, which obviously is necessary given that that's tomorrow. And we touched base on the Richard Toussaint Park naming and sanitation garage follow-up, which we are still working on. So that's my report.
Great, thank you. And again, if anyone has any questions regarding the readback of our committee chairs, please raise your hands. And Angel, you have your hand raised, or did you want to speak on EcoDev or?
Yeah, the EcoDev, I remember the other motion. The committee passed a motion supporting a letter of inquiry to the Department of Cultural Affairs, requesting a report and an update on the status of the Victory Over Sims statue. Yeah, the installation of that statue.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for that update. It's very helpful that we keep following up with that. Okay, EOSP executive, it was the Cinco de Mayo Fiesta. We had a robust conversation on that last about 40 minutes or so. Came down with a discernible plan to help The businesses there engage with the proprietors of the Fiesta, the street closure. An email was sent about almost 2 weeks ago to all of the businesses to set up a meeting to do a walkthrough. I followed up on that today, asking them to let us know if maybe this weekend would work or the weekend after, to make sure everyone's on the same page for a successful event for both the businesses and the heads of the festival there. So that was that. And then we had a discussion very briefly referring back to our meeting efficiency working notes that you'll find in your executive committee, which we're going to bring up under old business. Told people to please check executive committee and you can review it and add your thoughts. So we'll jump into that a little later. So that concludes executive, housing, and then human services. John?
Thank you, Xavier. Basically, the housing committee meeting, we had NYCHA come in to explain Pat Rad and the trust and all, and it was a hearty discussion. And I tried something new because I forget who said you shouldn't have a 2 or 3 hour meeting if you don't have any action items. So what I did is that when it came to committee members asking questions, I borrowed something from the city council. I said, make it brief and make it on topic. I said, this is a committee meeting, not a Shakespearean soliloquy. So the thing is that, so it worked pretty well. It needs a little more tweaking, but hopefully we'll get it done where meetings won't take so long and we can still do what we need to do.
Thank you, John. Okay. Next up is Isaac for Human Services. Isaac.
Good evening, everybody. So I will give a full report at full board, but I'll just briefly go through what we went through at our meeting. So we had our updates. We normally have updates from East Harlem Co-ed, our disaster management agency. We have our Bodican, we have our cannabis updates. We also have our DOH and MH updates. And they did report that we're like really, COVID is like 3% positivity rates in the city. So that's a great thing. But I also gave an update on, so I attended an event on 104th Street in Lexington Avenue on March 29th. DSS hosted like a community discussion. It was as I described to the community board, it was a good gesture, you know, but I guess they can only do but so much. So they did their best, I guess, with respects to how they organize events to, you know, get community perspective. They had some breakout groups. They, you know, sort of put us in different groups with a moderator from DSS. And we sort of went through all of the different services that DSS actually provides. And the discussion was just open for folks to, you know, just express, you know, what issues they've been having with DSS. How can DSS improve its services? And I'm not sure if everybody here on this call knows all of the services covered by DSS. Can somebody mute? I'm sorry.
Jason, it looks like you're unmuted. Can you mute?
Sorry.
Thank you.
No, I thought it was my kids, but I'm like, hold up, they're here with me.
Oh, good. Carry on, Isaac.
Man. So yeah, so just really quickly, I do want to just cover what DSS, all of the services and benefits that they do cover. Because if anyone on the call now, because I'm in the final stages of sending out the letter to the deputy chief, the recommendations that came from my table and from the community board meeting we just had. But they covered cash assistance, career services that is connected to the cash assistance you receive, childcare services for people who receive cash assistance. They have the wellness comprehension, assessment, rehabilitation, and employment program, WeCare. You have the supplemental nutrition and assistance program, the SNAP program. Community food connection, which is the citywide initiative funding soup kitchens and food pantries. You have the home energy assistance program, HEAP, that helps low-income homeowners and renters pay bills for heating and cooling their homes. You have burial assistance. You have medical insurance, long-term and home care services. You have homeless prevention. You also have an emergency shelter. You have rental assistance, so ongoing in emergency. You have Home Base, which is a community-based program that connects New Yorkers at risk of eviction, right? You have supportive housing. You have child support services, domestic violence services, HIV and AIDS services, adult protection services, ID NYC, which is the identification card for all New York City residents. You have legal services, the Office of Civil Justice, and Fair Fares NYC. So just me reading off that list lets y'all know that DSS, they cover too much for them to be able to really get a real grasp on the fullness of like complications with respects to all of these different initiatives, with respects to all of the different people there. But they did a good job. I'll say it wasn't bad. I was able to get the contact information from the deputy chief and inform her that I would follow up with an actual email sort of outlining community concerns with respects to, all of these issues, because I knew that there was a lot of people not represented at that event and wanted to give space for other concerns under these umbrellas. I went through a lot of I went through all of the concerns that came out of my table. I won't go through all of that now, but I will recap it, a lot of it for a full board. But if there are any like concerns, I can tell you like a lot of just some of the most important things. Now I want to say they all important. Sorry. Some of the most popular things were like dealing with HRA, the process and the people, really encouraging DSS to this was interesting, encouraging DSS to ensure that, case managers or people taking cases are trained in crisis management, because at the time in which a person comes and applies for public assistance, it's a crisis for them, and a lot of times they, if you got a bad attitude and you say something wrong to the wrong person, you might not get what you came there for. So that was a big thing. The whole time getting in contact with HRA when you needed to. Immigration was a big thing. They have, I forgot what the exact name of it is called, but it's something with immigration where I think it's public service or something like that, where like if you are seeking asylum and if you apply for public assistance, then that may hurt you when you go to apply for citizenship, because in order to apply for citizenship, you have to prove that you're not dependent on the government or on the country, so it kind of puts you in a bad place, so that was something that was brought up. Stigma towards food pantries and soup kitchens, also food education, food literacy. There's a lot of, and I know this from working at a pantry, working at the church that has a pantry, there's a lot of like folks will turn back food because they don't understand it or to go to waste, because they've never used it or don't understand how to cook it. So, folks were talking about, the need for like nutrition education in these ways for folks to just, try new foods. You get a lot of produce now, which is a good thing at pantries, but some of it is weird and strange to folks, so even I look at some of that stuff right now. I'm not gonna waste it, so they give it back, but in all reality, we should, and everyone who is taking advantage of a food pantry should benefit from all of the food being given, especially because there is like a nutritional balance to the food that has to be given, so that was something. I'm really going off the top of my head right now, so I don't remember a lot of it, but I will make sure that I give a much more fuller report at full board. So we had like two presentations. One of them was data. Someone presented their data on the COVID study they did for Asian people. They did a study on COVID and the impact on Asian people. My man Joseph DiBenedetto from Search and Care. And we also had an informational presentation from the mental health initiative through the Connect program at Housing Works. We also, lastly, we continued our discussion on the moratorium, hence the motion in front of you. I am going to, with respects to this motion, I am going to recommend that because the intention was to extend what we have already written until our next meeting, at which we will, we have all agreed that we will make edits and suggestions, as I have mentioned in the past meetings. So as the motion is written now, and this is a lot of my mistake as the chair, I'll take ownership on this, and not getting the language and not honing in on that at the moment. I wouldn't suggest this motion being passed as it's written because it doesn't have a time on it. It doesn't say how long we want to extend it. So I would recommend that whoever would put the motion on the floor would, we can amend it with our intention was 30 days until our next meeting. Or we could just deny it and kick it back to our committee. But the purpose of wanting to extend it was so that we had a live document while we were going through our edits, so that was the purpose of it. Yeah, I think that concludes my report.
Thank you, Isaac. And just make sure with your report for DSS, and I think it was expressed during the meeting about how I think either you or someone else said that if you felt like it was just checking a box coming through.
Yeah,
So I think that's
So I want to always, please allow me as a human to always develop my language, because that is the language. I did use that on the floor, and I do feel like they did check the box, but I tried to cover that with, it was a good gesture, because they do have to go to a lot of communities. They do only have a certain amount of time. They do cover a lot of services. So with respects to all of that, I don't want to just, shoot bad at them. But, I did feel like they didn't give enough time or space,
Yeah. No, there's no harm in saying that. What I'm saying is that is an observation. If you're seeing it, that means others may be seeing and feeling it. And it's important for us, an engagement, to have to make the recommendation that they just afford us a little bit more time and consideration and leaning in. So but again, as an observation, I thought it's not the first time we've seen that with our agency. So thank you. And if you just make sure you include that in your minutes and your report, so that everyone can read it and digest it on the day, but we'll jump into that in under old business. Thank you for a very comprehensive breakdown. And as for the one action item, we could easily just accept on the floor an amendment to make it extend through next full board, and that's easy enough to do and get it done and dusted. So thank you. Hold on, window closed. Who is next? We have land use. Nilsa, unless Jason is here. Nilsa, you are muted.
Now I'm unmuted. Is Jason here? No. Okay, so I'm gonna briefly go through that. As was mentioned tonight, Ascendant is going to be doing a presentation at the full board regarding their project on 106th Street, their Share NYC project. So originally they had thought to come again to land use, but because of scheduling issues with both HPD and Ascendant, they elected to do their presentation at full board with the public hearing, so that we are in the comment period between April 5th and by June 5th, we must be completed. We also had, let's see, we also had a presentation from Mount Sinai. They wanted to get a special permit. They wanted an amendment to a special permit, and they did a presentation regarding a facade improvement and other various improvements that will allow them to reimagine the entrance and other spaces to make them more useful. I can read exactly what it is. It was for variance in order to renovate the Klingenstein Clinical Center for an expanded oncology program. The application will allow an increase in the degree of non-complying block coverage. And then that, since they were not on the calendar with BSA, we did not take any action. We just heard the presentation, and once they're on the calendar, then land use will weigh in as needed. We also had a presentation from Lo van der Valk, the president of Carnegie Hill Neighbors for Alternatives, at the 96th Street project, the Co-op Tech project that we've had a couple of years with the Marx Brothers Playground. And so he came and he gave various alternatives for the lot usage, movement, if the high schools were incorporated back again. And then there was a fruitful discussion both from the committee as well as Mr. van der Valk. So we always appreciate, as Angel brought up, we appreciate that Mr. van der Valk and Carnegie Hill Neighbors have come and presented, because they've allowed us to weigh in, and they've also extended the process, which may turn out to be beneficial for us. And that's all I have, unless someone remembers something from the land use meeting. We had no action items because of the presentations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Nelson. Next we have, and again, Adam, I know you're feeling a little bit on the weather, but we kind of addressed licenses and permits. Is there anything you'd like to add from that discussion?
I think maybe just Boca Prime. I know we had a long meeting with them a month or so ago. They came, their owner, he met with me and Xavier and Angel. They discussed how they felt that hookah was important to their business. We extended an invite to them to our committee meeting this month. They could make their pitch to the committee, and the committee felt that as long as they sell hookah after 8 p.m., that they were comfortable with that. So the committee approved that method of operation change. I think we also requested that they conspicuously post that hookah will be offered. So should anybody that wants to go after 8 o'clock not want to be, around hookah smoke or whatever, they at least are aware of that before they go in. Other than that, I think everything was pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you, Adam. And I think when we go into our full board next week, just to highlight that, and if we need to carve it out as an action item separately, because typically we've been bundling both our licenses and permits, so just in case. But I would definitely just recommend the amount of effort that was put into by the committee and by yourself, Angel, myself, in meeting and engaging, and them trying to engage faithfully with us. So thank you. No, so public safety and transportation, Jose.
Our agenda, for the most part, 5G was a very controversial topic. So I knew it was going to take time, so we had a very light agenda based on that. There was a lot of comments from the public, comments from, everyone and anyone. At the end, we took a position against it due to the lack of clarity. But it was a very consuming topic. We also had, we rectified the bus stop, which I think was a great victory for this community. And though not everyone may agree. I thought it was pretty straightforward. This bus already goes around Central Park. It's already traveling through our community. It's been traveling through our community for years and years and years and years. It stops only at museums in certain places. On the west side, the last stop is the Museum of Natural History. It goes completely up the west side. And then on our side, the next stop would have been the Guggenheim. And now we're privileged to have a stop at in front of the two museums, Museo del Barrio and the Museum of New York, which they were in favor. They had their letters of support. And happily, I'm able to say that it passed. So I am very happy that that went forward. We have a lot of other things that we're moving along, but so far so good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any questions for Jose? Okay, seeing that there are none, and we haven't had a Second Avenue Subway Task Force meeting, but we will be having one in the near future. Youth and education, David. Oh, hold on. You had a question, Isaac, real quick. Sorry, hold on.
Yes, I just wanted to correct something that I said in my report. My apologies. The immigration issue was called public charge, not public service. Forgive me.
Okay, thank you very much for that that change. Appreciate it. Okay, wonderful. David, the con is yours.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to just thank Jessica as we're co-collaborating on a project this year for our committees. It does save us from youth and education having to endure another project. However, I do want to highlight that one of the things I think I want to work on with the district in D4, DOE, and I spoke with Dr. Christie, is really doing some civic engagement with schools and going in, myself, Ash, and other committee members, and going in and just doing a little, community board 101, and what is it, and what are the, the obligations and commitments and what we do in those kinds of things. So that's something I want to jump off during the summer to have start next fall. But, I'll say this. We knew we were going to have a long meeting on a topic that we discussed for a long time at the previous meeting. And we also had, like Jose, a light agenda, knowing that there might be some sensitive areas around it. So we had graphics come back and do a presentation on their services. It was interesting, during the, we had a lot of challenging discussions around what things mean and how we identify and perceptions of services and semantics with words at times. But people all had really good, input, and it's a process. And I think we always have to go through the process of checks and balances so that those of us that may lean more on one side may be missing something that we do need to see. And I really want to thank Xavier and John Green for doing their due diligence and had attended a presentation by graphics to, really see them in action. They both came back and presented some wonderful, awesome, very favorable work they're doing. They're working with, some very challenging population of youth that they themselves identify. And again, we had discussion about how we identify and the words we use to target youth. And again, I do want to commend everybody for sticking through it and making sure that we did get to the bottom of where we were. Ultimately, the committee very closely, and we learned some process of Robert's Rules of Order that I did not fully understand in my 12 years on the board, at OSHA, or 14, whatever it is. It does show you that, we're still open to learning new things and being open. So I hope as the committee did forward this as an item to support, that we look beyond sometimes what some of our own feelings of things are and look at what the outcomes of the work that somebody does. So with that said, unfortunately, because we changed the board meeting to Wednesday, I have a function with Children's Aid where I have kids presenting at our college access. And our college access celebration is where kids get scholarships for college. So I will be there as part of the MC and video, audio group, so I won't be there. I'm trying to make sure that Asher will be at the committee meeting. But if not, I'm going to ask Reverend Scott, who's another chair, and since we co-collaborated also on doing this, to make that presentation if I'm absent, and move forward. We're going to work on a draft for the support letter. I just had to get through a presentation with development today that consumed a lot of my time. And that's part of the rebuild. So that's a good announcement. We no longer own Children's Aid. We are in the process of the rebuild, and we will again be reaching out to the community to come back and do a formal presentation. I do want to say this as we overlap with Human Services. I know we've had the issues of rats, and just hearing Abigail go through the things, and rats has always been something we've kept there, and nobody addressed it. But finally we have a rat czar in Manhattan and New York City to address those situations, which again impact youth in different ways as well. Pretty much, I want to remind everybody, the rest of the meeting was informational. I do want to remind everybody that we do have Summer Rising open and DYCD summer camps. The applications are open for 3 weeks. Please, please, if you know people, get them to fill out them applications. It's a little different. Families will get 3 choices and you may not get your first choice where you want to be. So there's a lot going into that. Anything else? I did write something else down, but I can't find it in the. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Jose, I see your hand up.
Jose.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the graphics presentation was also public safety. And I just wanted to thank David and his committee, because by the time our committee came up, they had already taken a position. Obviously, it would have been redundant to take another position for the same item. That's something that couldn't be discussed at full board, because I know there were some controversies. We did discuss it, and there were some individuals that were against it or had concerns, but I mean, that's why we have our process and they can discuss. I advise them to discuss it at full board when the vote actually happens. But I just wanted to thank David and his committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. You know, again, it was a committee effort, and I do want to say, you know, sometimes we need the extreme sides, not being overly and redundant, but we do need to make sure that we're looking at all corners of something and that we're not missing something, right?
For sure. That's why we
You know.
discussed it. We had it on the record, but you know, we felt it
No.
was better to just talk about it, and then, you know, we mentioned that your committee had taken position.
Okay.
But you know what? I would say this, Jose, and sorry, Xavier. Sometimes maybe you should have the other committee take a position because they have something different. They may be looking at a different lens than we're looking from the lens that we're looking at as well, you know. And I'll just say this, you know, we also have another very, and you know, Rosa could speak to this as well as the president of the CEC. You know, we have 2 schools that are switching, one from the west side and one to the east side. And there's a lot of controversy on both sides with that. And like I mentioned the other day in the CC, I've spoken to a few of the students that attend, you know, our school on the east side, and I don't want to get into names and all that. And, you know, they're looking forward to going. But I also know the school on the west side because that's why I work with children today for 25 years in that site right there in those development, that NYCHA development. So, you know, what I think we should do is help support the process as a community board and all lend all levels of expertise in helping support whichever decisions are finally made. And Rosa, do you want to add anything? Because I know I wasn't thinking about that, but it hit me and I want to. And I'm not trying to take over your spot, Xavier, but you know.
No, I mean, she was at the committee meeting. If there's anything that you've missed, Rosa, feel free in this instance. If not, it's quite all right.
I've worked with a lot of kids from Young Leaders Membership, and I worked with a lot of kids from William Randolph when I was on the west side. Good kids. They want good schools. They want space.
Our community deserves it, absolutely, David. And I think when it comes to the action item, what we can do is Asher will present on your behalf, and then since he made the motion, we can quickly summarize that just so it has context. I think that will be fine for the order of the day. So thank you. Wonderful. And as always, it was I was glad to go with John and actually have a conversation with his moniker, Dr. Kai. And he was very nice with me, and we kind of broke it down pretty succinctly. So I think it's just he's really trying to work with a lot of the youth that have been unreachable for a long time, and so I could feel his heart a lot in that. But he broke it down in a very common business sense as well, and that how the opportunity cost becomes greater every stage in every way. I mean, so anyway, we can talk more about that later, but yeah, it was very business savvy. So as well, and how the real world context. So I'm going to move us along. I think that was our last committee chair report. We're going to move on to now and pull the agenda back up. We hold on just a second. Okay, old business. If you would be so kind, Angel, to pull up the continuing committee meeting efficiency document for us. I don't know how many of you have looked at that. I'd sent an email with the direct link, but referenced it during our last executive committee meeting back in March. And for context, when in the executive, this space that we're in right now, when we're typically in the room, this is where we share all of our in-depth details and what we discussed at community at our committee meetings versus at full board, we're more focused on the business and action items and the simple brain dump, and that we refer people back to our minutes from those so we can be more efficient and more about the business of the day. And that's typically how the structure has been designed. But if you look here, again, this is a place for us to spitball, throw ideas, but some of the consensus we got from not just executive committee that we had in person, but also feedback I'm getting from a lot of the members is that how do we find our meetings? How are we making them more efficient? Obviously, Zoom has made it more difficult because we're having to wait, pause. It's not a normal, natural conversation that would typically ensue when we used to meet in person. In that regard, one of the things that if you scroll down just a little bit, Angel, we used to, again, because when we would meet over at the CB office, you would have one meeting at 6 and then another one at 7. Those that ran longer, like public safety and transportation, license and permits, would meet over at Bonifacio, and they'd be there for about 90 minutes or so. Really contentious issues may run longer. These are some of the ideas, and what's happened is I just started throwing ideas, and I've asked others that as you bullet point in, just put your initials at the end. We've Jessica Elliott, thank you very much for expanding on some of these issues. For example, per Robert's Rules of Order, if you were opining on an issue, a way to keep the committee kind of flowing and the conversation flowing is letting a member speak once on an issue. Keep the questions and commentary under 1 minute, or when we say succinct. So that's, again, something as chairs, we try to make it very concise, and oftentimes people give a lot of background on an issue, and oftentimes it's not necessary. Just ask with the direct question. Case in point, one of our members who's been really good at that is Asher, who will just say, no, that wasn't my question. My question is X, Y, and Z, and then boom, you can then answer. Other ways we could work, and again, collaborating with cross committee. Thank you, Jess, for putting this in. It's just not too many items on the agenda for that particular month. If you know it's going to be a heavy item, like David was referencing, it's just that. That's your bite of the apple. Keeping presentations on schedule, advising the presenters that there's allowable time. We are going to try something new this month at full board, which I'll get to in just a moment. Tabling requests for action items the following month allows the committee also to collect additional information. That's an important component, because just look what we saw at licenses and permits. Additional information needed to be reviewed, and that's what executive stands here to do. Is that when any one of our committees can't make take a position, they then will weigh in. Angel, you were going to say something?
No, I'm reacting to the Rangers almost scored a goal. Sorry, I thought it was
Nice. Okay, no, it's all right. Now I'm curious what the score is. If you can scroll down, please. So that's on the committee level. Full board. This is something that, hearing back, from a lot of the committee members, even what we were doing a really good job at, which is the highlight reel, is what I termed it. Just again, working in film. Your top 3 items, including an action item, try to land the jet within 3 minutes. That gives us a little, and just like with our public speakers and our publicly and our elected reps, it allows us to condense it. We're referring back to our minutes, which are the standing record. So we used to have at various points very efficient meetings where people would get their packets, they read their minutes, they'd ask a particular question, they'd have an answer, we'd either vote or move on if it was just an information only. Something I will work with is working with the questions and commentary, and reminding people to keep it under a minute. What we're going to try now this month, and again, I want to have a conversation, a dialogue on this at the moment, is we're going to put a little timer like we have done with our elected representatives, our pre-registered speakers, so we can keep tabs, because we all have a tendency to go on and on and on, and I'm guilty of it as well. I mean, Nilsa and I have talked about it. Like we had a meet, like we walked home after executive and we're like, yeah, I do that too. And David and I have chatted, and Jed, like but we love to share this information because we have so much passion, and that's a good thing. But it's about how do we keep it. And I think this is the other thing from a psychological point of view. We're going to hold on to people's attention more, and our board members more, if we're very concise, and that we hit each of the points, and then it allows for more dialogue when necessary. So that's something that we'll be running. And again, when I give my chair report, Angel's going to click on it and he's going to track me, and I'm going to be able to see it and hit all of my points from everything I do throughout the, and he's timing me now. Irony. So this is what we're going to try doing. So give yourself a practice run, get the little timer. He can share it in an email so you can practice. It's good for all of us. I'm going to do the same. And I think what we'll find is that then if we have any questions, we can be more direct. And I think the membership will appreciate the more efficient meeting, as will the public. But again, we want to refer people back to our YouTube, but more importantly, our documentation. And that's all of our reporting back in our minutes. So if we can go back to real quick, and I'll get you your question, Nilsa, just bear with me for a moment. I just want to hit the last little bits on the other tab, Angel. Thank you. There we go. Action items. Again, this is something we saw that happened last month, where a member of a committee had raised another point to add because the point did not get successfully passed through during the committee. So again, if you as a chair know someone who may be wanting to represent a full board, which they can do, and they may try to do, but again, if they had their opportunity to opine, but then they voted for it, it's about us being able to engage in an efficient manner. So again, this is just something that I think is important. Yeah, so this is a planning ahead. Read the agenda, read the minutes. That's important why we get our minutes on time. Since there's access to the agenda, preliminary board minutes, read it, formulate your questions versus the thinking out loud. And when roll call, Michelle is going to take a different approach. We discussed it. She's going to call out the last names. So going right down the line, like Arroyo, wait a moment, Arroyo, unclick, click, Brija. We talked about that just to keep things in the same with the roll call votes. If you're missed, just wait till the end, and then you can raise your hand and say, I'm here and I vote aye or present. And that way we can keep things running. Yes, exactly. Bueller. Love it. So that's some of it. And I think that is the end of it. I would love to have a conversation about this. If you like some of these ideas, like to hear it. I'd like to see what people think about the consensus of trying to land the jet in 3 minutes, and what you think about what we're going to do with our committee meetings going forward. So Nilsa, I'll go to you. You had your hand raised real quick.
Thank you, Chair, for your recognition. I just had a quick question. In terms of the 3 minutes for the committee chair reports, does that also go for questions that community board members may have? As you are aware, sometimes, and I am guilty of it, we may give a lot of too much commentary at the beginning of a question, which would then take up a lot of time. Are we considering doing that in terms of training board members by using a clock to be a little bit more succinct? Or is it just the chairs at this point in time, and that might be able to be translated at another time?
So that's a really good question, Nilsa. Thank you. The idea is that leading by example, right? Is that if we're able to be very concise in our delivery and our reporting back, so that when we get to the action items, we reserve the bulk of questions and back and forth. So if we go over that time, it's for questions and dialogues for clarification purposes. And again, I will lean in more in reminding members. I said, I need to hear your question. Or reminding them that, hey, was this, what is your question? If you're giving, as John Green put it, a soliloquy of information prior to saying, why May? Why are you doing this in May? Right? Instead of just asking the question. Again, that's just a random example, but, and then hopefully we will, Angel and Jess and I all had a call about a refresher coming up before the new membership comes on, about asking the staff Robert's Rules of Order, a lot of how we take positions, everything just a simple refresher. So I think this will be coupled with that about how to efficiently conduct a meeting. And that's an ongoing, and again, it's an experiment to try, see how we flow with it and try to get through our business of the day, which is what the purpose of full board is.
Yeah, and just a quick follow-up on we had talked about having the committee chair be the one to thank the presenters for doing their presentation, because oftentimes you have board members repeating, thank you for your presentation, thank you for your presentation. And I will tell you from off the line comments, the people that actually look at our meetings feel that that's redundant. And so, I've mentioned it before, but I never got a chance to put in the comment now. So I just want to get it enshrined in the minutes and put it in eventually, that the thanking of the presentations maybe should be done once, with the understanding that the board chair or the committee chair is speaking for the entire committee. This way it will allow the members to be efficient and just ask their question and not put a preface prior to the question. That's it.
I think that's a great recommendation, and we'll make sure to get that included in the minutes. And then feel free to go into the document and just put it under in your initials NO. That'd be great. Isaac, I keep seeing your hand going up and down.
Yeah, because that's where my head is going up and like I'm like maybe. I'm experiment. Cool. I'll just yeah, I think we should give it a shot in 3 minutes. I think with time management is one of the things we're working on in our meetings too. So I appreciate that. I'm a little concerned about the thanking. I understand that it can be redundant, but each committee member has their own voice, and sometimes they preface what they're going to say by saying thank you for your presentation. So I mean, if a person is just going to raise their hand to say thank you, maybe we can ask people not to do that. But I don't know if I want to say like, don't say thank you because I'm going to say it for you kind of thing. You know what I mean? No matter how well I articulate it, it just doesn't, you know what I mean? That's really it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think that's something we'll have to, within our committees, fill out. But I think but that's part of the point of putting this dialogue, this sheet here. Let's throw the ideas out there. I think when it comes, I think maybe what Nilsa may be referencing, and I don't want to speak for you, Nilsa, so please feel free to, if I don't articulate well, and I'll come to you, Jess, and then you, Steph, it's the long thank yous, or like, oh, we couldn't do anything, da, 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 da. And then there is a question, maybe I'm speculating. Nilsa, do you want to respond back to, or is it?
So I've had, people talk to me a lot of times offline. Especially people that have attended meetings. And one of the things that has come up several times is the, when you say, I wanted, like, the chair, the committee chair says, thank you, for the great presentation and everything. The meetings sometimes can get overlong. And sometimes the question and answer session can be overlong. And so sometimes people who just dial in to get information feel that it's redundant. Not everyone feels it's redundant. It is understood that people can thank you, obviously, for a presentation. But when it becomes that 2 and 3 and 4 members are asking questions and say, I want to thank you for your presentation, I want to thank you for your presentation, after a while, it's not the most effective use of our time, according to people who are actually seeing our meetings, right? Because people just want to cut and chase, right? This is why this document is being put together, because sometimes our meetings do go over long. And through Zoom, we've had to do things a little differently. It may come out differently in person, but for people who are dialing in, the people that have talked to me have asked, is that a necessary thing, or can just the committee ask, just say once, we all thank you for your presentation. And of course, no one is looking to silence anyone, but we have to also be aware that we have a way of carrying ourselves forward with our public and how we, touch people and how we communicate. And so I think that anytime anybody from the audience brings up something like that, that has to be considered in terms of our operating procedures.
Okay, thank you, Nilsa. I think my general, because I want to move things along, and I value both of your opinions, and I think just have a go, try it at your committee and see what the results are, and for efficiency, and it may evolve into someone having a question and saying, thank you for presenting, my question is, and it brings the succinctness and the etiquette together. And so we're marrying both worlds in that way. So again, it's one of those things to have a go. Let's see how it works. Jess, and then Steph.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with your summary there, Xavier, that, I do agree with Isaac that it's important, these groups are coming to our committees and, spending their time with us, and it's important to thank them. I think when it gets to thank you for your presentation, it really relates to XYZ our committee has been working on 45 seconds later, that's when it becomes a problem. So if people can just keep it succinct and say thank you for my presentation, I acknowledge that you have come here and that was a lot of work. Here's my question. Just dive right into that. That'd be the best idea in my opinion. With the document that we've been working on, I just wanted to encourage everyone on this executive committee to weigh in on these topics so that we can formalize these things and move ourselves forward as the leadership of the board. But really going back to Xavier's point about the refresher for the full board members, the rest of the board, in my opinion, this all starts with us as the leaders of the committees. So, how we're carrying ourselves and how we are, providing a sense of control and like organization for our committees ahead of full board is really important. I think the biggest concern I have is the sort of rehashing of things in full board and what can we do as committee chairs to communicate to the members of our committee, this is a requirement that you all participate in these discussions, weigh in during the committee, and then if there's anything that happens or modifications that would like to be made, like that needs to happen in advance of full board, and whatever we can do to limit the confusion at full board is my personal number one goal. So how do we emblemize that in our work as committee chairs, and then when we get to the refresher, use that as a way to say, all right, well, here's what we're expecting of ourselves, and here's what we're expecting of all the rest of the membership, so that we can get more engagement, more people actively working on projects, more people showing up to things and participating in events and helping to organize these things, because it's not fun when it's only a handful of people doing really big projects. So how do we re-engage the rest of our board and lead by example? Thanks so much, Xavier.
Thank you, Jess. I think there's some salient points there. We all value each other's time, and I think that's the crux of it, because we have so much fun when we're actually generating positive change in the neighborhood. When we have events like tomorrow, or we're sitting around at a presentation at DSS, or absorbing on behalf of the people we represent, because we don't represent ourselves, but rather filter everyone else we represent. And try to bring consensus. So I think that's the value add for what we do at full board in the business session, and the newer members and the members who we're going to have come on in May will value that too. So Steph, thank you.
Thank you. I get why we're doing this. And I guess my understanding is we as chair are going to take these practices and start conducting it in our committees, right? But I do see a portion of some of these ideas to be in full board. And I'm just fearful that, our community, we don't have a lot of people that are able to speak up, who feel powerful enough to speak up. And when I saw this email, I don't know if I missed it in the meeting that we had this, I don't know. But I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute, are we like controlling what we're saying, or how we saying, and how long people have to explain how they feel about a certain subject? I get it, because a lot of our meetings and a lot of our conversations become long-winded and go round and round and never like reach the surface of where we're getting to. I'm just fearful that this will, and I especially in my committee, I don't have enough people talking in my committee, so maybe I won't be doing this in my committee. But I'm just fearful that this is going to either stop people from speaking who aren't already speaking in our meetings, or people feeling like they're being controlled in a way. And I'm just a little fearful of that. So I just want to make my concerns.
So thank you, Steph. It's an open dialogue. This is what we're here to do. The only disadvantage we have is we're not sitting in the room together. That's really it. It's not about to control or squelch, not, it couldn't be farther from the truth, but it actually will afford people who don't feel inclined to speak up to feel like the oxygen has not been taken out of the room. And that is some of the feedback we've received that we've from other members who feel like, I want to speak up, but this one person has spoken so much that now I can't really say, and I just want to move the meeting along and go home. And that's not a feeling I think any member, especially those that tend to be more reserved or quieter, if that's the comment and feedback that I'm receiving, and I know Nilsa at one point we had spoken about this, she's receiving the same thing. This is a way, and these are guide rails, right? Figure it out within your committees, and of a way to activate others to speak up. And not every committee has that particular issue. So like you said, district needs, you need more people to speak up. So we'll work in a way for your committee's needs to encourage that and incentivize it. But I think so it was also to open up space for people to have the opportunity, because as we've seen over the course of time, and for those of us who were here before we were in the virtual space, oftentimes those that would be more loquacious and the spoken word would then absorb a lot of that time when others wanted to say maybe 2 or 3 sentences and that was it. And they were just like, I want to go home. And I've literally had people say that. I was like, well, no, that you should speak up then. So this is, again, it's a working document and it's a dialogue for all of us, but I think all of us giving it a go at full board to try to kind of condense, and then that'll allow us a little bit more breathing room in case there are questions, because we do have some items that are a bit touchy. I will say, not touchy, I would say more just some people, as they pass through committee, had a debate. But this will afford us more opportunity if we have to have an in-depth discussion. But again, it's an ongoing dialogue. So add your thoughts. If you find something successful, Steph, toss it in there, put SA in your initials in parentheses right after it, please. Nilsa, your hand raised.
Thank you, Stephanie, for your comments. You know, Stephanie and I had a long conversation today. And so she knows that she and I never filter anything from each other because we just love each other too much. But I agree. I think that Stephanie does, you know, she brings up a valid concern, right? Because people don't want to feel like they're being stifled. But I will say, Stephanie, that I think that at least talking about it and bringing up the idea in meetings may make people aware, right? So for instance, as I told you, right, my meetings would be very overlong because I wanted everyone to have an opportunity to speak, right? And then people would have rebuttal and rebuttal and rebuttal. And then it came to a point where some of our meetings were like 4 hours and people were quite rightly so not feeling that the meeting was as efficient as it could be, and not everybody had an opportunity to speak. So while this may not be something that would be adopted, right, after thought and everything, but at least it'll make everyone aware that there's time limits, right? That the meetings are not just, you know, limitless, that we have to just be aware so we can learn to communicate better. And I think that if we can do that, at least for board members, I'm a big believer that the community has to speak and has to weigh in, and you know, not necessarily curbing the public commentary, right? Because we need public commentary to inform the work, but at least for the board members to potentially learn more efficiency if that is what the body dictates. That was the idea behind awareness of how, like for instance, right now my explanation of it continuing to be too long in terms of, instead of being more succinct.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to get a real quick read. So are we good with giving it a go at full board, trying to condense our chair reports to 3 minutes, including mine? And Jess, if she's going to give one. So she just...
Agreed.
Yes.
Yes.
Mine is usually less than 3 minutes anyway.
Adam, I know yours is. Steph, you want to give it a go? David, Isaac.
I ain't promising nothing.
Ah. We will have the timer up as a guide. So yes, Jose.
Not about this, but it is about our meetings. Do we know, where are we with meeting, in person? How long did they extend it for? I really think that we should make a motion. I think committee meetings make it a lot more accessible for, the public to join by having Zoom. I think it's definitely something that's advantageous to people that can't always make it out. We've had more participation from the public with Zoom. And I mean, I think full board, once a month we meet in person, I think it's all right. But, the city and the state kind of keep pushing us around with this. And I feel that we should kind of throw something at them saying, hey, why don't you guys think about this kind of long term? Because, everyone, systems change, jobs have changed, everyone has changed after COVID. And, so I think that there is definitely something we can do, particularly with having the committee meetings, indefinitely through Zoom. And I think it's something that we should take to the full board, make a motion, blah, blah, blah. And not necessarily tonight, but I mean, just in general. I want to bring that out there.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. That is an ongoing issue at Borough Board, which we had today. I think we did take a position last year calling for them to extend the emergency orders for 3 months at a time. So that is our current position on it. And I'm fine taking another position next month if we want to entertain that in May's executive. I would say, because the accessibility, when we had our meeting executive last month, we had the owl. Zoom was accessible even though we were in person. So that was, it is, and per the law, the state law, it's supposed to be accessible. As for the extension of the emergency order, the state law only affords the head of the municipalities a 30-day extension at a time. You can't do it more than that. So even if Mayor Adams wanted to extend beyond 30 days, he by state law cannot. So that's why it keeps being punted every 30 days, which is what.
And for sure. But I mean, just putting something out there where they make a state change, where
for the state law.
hybrid is an option for us. That's all.
Okay, so absolutely. So we could work on that and the executive committee folder, start working on, if you would like to create a document or someone here would like to create a document, what state law changes we'd like to make, and then we can discuss that at next. Any other comments on that? Okay. With that, yeah. So yeah, I see your hand. Yeah, go on, Stefan.
I tried, so I don't know. I tried to do an in-person meeting yesterday, and most people, I think only maybe one person was still willing to come in person, right? Like most people could not make it, didn't feel well, and some of the people didn't feel well were able to get in through Zoom. So I don't know. I'd love it to be a hybrid. I just don't know how many people are gonna come in person. And I don't think it's fair for us to have Angel sitting there waiting for us, trying to figure out if we're gonna come into the office or not, having any staff sitting there trying to figure it out. So that's just, I was the only one in the office, yeah. So yeah, that's just my thing.
So why don't we then stake out a position for next month? So we can work on that offline, where we review it next month, and then we can take a position. So we're having a bit of the discussion now, and it is building off of what we had previously stated when we called for a 3-month extension of the moratorium at a time. So that's something and calling for changes of the state law. So Nilsa?
If there, am I still muted? Oh, if this is something that we're gonna do, I urge that as part of the position that members can call in, but a certain percentage, because we can't lose touch with meeting with the public, and Stephanie's absolutely right. Her and Angel valiantly tried to put together a meeting where no one showed up except myself, and it was great to see Angel in person. But I think that there has to be also for members that can call in, that there's a recognition that there is an active participation in the meeting, because those members that are truly sick and want to vote should be allowed to be recognized if they're not in a hybrid meeting.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. Appreciate that comment. So I think we could add that to the discussion for next month. If there are no other comments, we can move the agenda to any new business, and we'll give it a go at full board. And I appreciate all of your cooperation. So is there any new business? Seeing no hands raised, then we can adjourn. If you please call the roll. Angel?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Ah.
Jose,
Not here.
Stephanie,
Here.
Adem,
Here.
Jessica Elliott,
Here.
David Giordano, John Green,
Out.
Nosa,
Here.
Xavier,
Sure.
Isaac.
Yeah, good night, everybody.
Good night. Jason Villanueva. Michelle, what's your climate?
Good night.
Xander Bogarts. Reggie Jackson.
I'm here.
Nice.
You have quorum. The Rangers are up 3-1. Have a good night.
3-1, good.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Night.
Let's go.